Thanks for joining us for CBN News Today. I'm Lori Johnson.
And I'm Ephraim Graham. Muslims in several countries are outraged over the newest cover image of the Prophet Muhammad by the French satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo.
The magazine's new cartoon has led to more violence and death. Mark Martin has the story.
Protests turned deadly in the Western African country of Niger. The president of Niger says at least 10 people were killed in 2 days of violent protests against Charlie Hebdo's newest cartoon on its latest cover depicting the Prophet Muhammad. The latest issue of the French satirical weekly hit newsstands on Wednesday. It was the first following the January 7th attack on its headquarters that left 12 people dead. Over the weekend, protesters set churches on fire in the capital of Niger. Police and army officers tried to break up the crowd by firing tear gas. Protesters also set fire to roadblocks across the city, its French Cultural Center, and the National Lottery Building. In Pakistan, protesters stood on French, U.S., and Israeli flags and held a poster which read, "We condemn the blasphemy of Muhammad in Charlie Hebdo." Mainstream Islamic tradition states any physical depiction of Muhammad, even a respectful one, is considered blasphemous. On Monday in Afghanistan, hundreds of Afghans burned the French flag and chanted "Death to France." The protesters also demanded the French embassy in Kabul be shut down, and they want the French government to apologize to Muslims. Mark Martin, CBN News.
Thousands of people made their way to Selma, Alabama and Atlanta, Georgia this weekend to celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. In Alabama, Hollywood stars from the movie Selma made their way to the town to march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, the bridge where a civil rights march in 1965 turned bloody when it was met by police with clubs and tear gas.
Everybody who crossed that bridge on Bloody Sunday and then had the courage to get up and go again on Tuesday, and then do the final march. Every single person who was on that bridge is a hero.
The events are chronicled in the new film Selma.
January 16th was National Religious Freedom Day. The day commemorates the 1786 passage of the Virginia Statute for Religious Freedom. This statute became the basis for the U.S. Constitution and the First Amendment.
CBN News' Heather Sells spoke to Daniel Blomberg, senior counsel with the Beckett Fund, about National Religious Freedom Day and some of the major battles facing the faith community.
We are just coming out of a big year for religious liberty. The Supreme Court ruled in the Hobby Lobby case that the company does not have to set aside its religious convictions on birth control to comply with a government mandate. And then at the same time, of course, the High Court let stand a New Mexico ruling that said a wedding photographer who refused to photograph a gay wedding was violating the state's Human Rights Act. So when you think about these various cases, how would you assess the current climate for religious liberty?
Well, I think right now is an excellent time to be standing up for religious liberty. And I think there's two reasons for that. One is that we have very significant challenges to religious liberty taking place nationwide. And so we have people who are attempting, and governments that are attempting to force religious believers out of the public square. They're attempting to say that religion is something toxic and it's something that people can't participate in and fully embrace. And then also we have attacks by governments that are trying to attack religious beliefs in private life. So for instance, like the Hobby Lobby case that you just mentioned, where these are private business owners, private family business that since the 1970s has been working to advance their faith and have a business that allows their family to survive and provides employment for other folks. But also, now is a really good time to stand up for religious liberty because we are winning. We're winning overwhelmingly in the courts.
So when you look at the overall cases that are coming out right now in the courts, do you feel like religious liberty is winning more of the time?
Yes, definitely. There's a lot of reason to be optimistic for religious liberty. I mean, just look at the Supreme Court last year. So we have the federal government, the most powerful government in the world, the government that can put a man on the moon, they can put mail in your mailbox, their thermonuclear power. They lost 3 times at the U.S. Supreme Court in front regarding this issue of the abortifacient mandate, where they were trying to force ministries and family-run, faith-based businesses to provide abortion and contraceptive drugs in their health insurance policies. They lost in the Little Sisters of the Poor case at the beginning of the year last year. They lost in the Hobby Lobby case. And they lost again in the Wheaton College case.
When you look ahead to 2015, what are some of the big cases, the big battles that you're keeping an eye on?
Some of the cases that we see coming up in this next year are, for instance, the Holt v. Hobbs case, which is another Becket Fund case that has to do with whether prisoners can be protected and exercising their religious freedom in prison, which of course is incredibly important because, among other things, we see that faith dramatically decreases rates of recidivism. We also see more issues about the question of whether or not the federal government will ultimately be successful in forcing folks like the Little Sisters of the Poor to have to participate in a scheme to provide contraceptives to their employees. So these are just two very big cases that are coming up in the next year, and we have a lot of reason to expect that the courts will do the right thing because believers are doing the right thing.
And to see more of this interview, simply log on to cbnnews.com.
This week, pro-life advocates will gather in Washington for the annual March for Life. In the abortion battle, some accuse pro-lifers of focusing only on the child in the womb and ignoring the needs of the mother and her newborn. As Paul Strand explains, a clinic right across from Denver's Planned Parenthood is helping to put that notion to rest.
Some 15,000 to 16,000 women get abortions in Colorado during the average year, many of them right here.
For years now, the second largest abortion clinic in America has been churning out dozens of the procedures every day here in this Denver neighborhood. But now they have a competitor.
The Lighthouse Women's Center sits just across the street with its sign in full view of almost anyone heading to Planned Parenthood. It offers women an alternative to abortion, along with help for their unexpected pregnancy in the form of ultrasounds, counseling, medical care, and supplies. Monsignor Bernard Schmitz, who's prayed and protested outside Planned Parenthood, told CBN News he's overjoyed at the Lighthouse Clinic opening.
Some of the girls and the men who come here because they think it's the only alternative they have.
Lighthouse's executive director agrees the new center represents hope.
This is like last chance for gas for 1,000 miles for these girls. It's crucial because they could turn down that road, see our sign, and something could still touch their heart, even at the very last second, as they're contemplating abortion for their baby.
Nurse sonographer Paula Sewer wanted to perform ultrasounds here and make a positive impact on each pregnant woman or girl that comes through the door.
It's such a crucial time for her. There's never really a mundane day because they're really life-changing decisions, and it's an honor really to be able to be part of something like that for somebody.
Grandin says Lighthouse follows in a 2,000-year tradition of Christians fighting to save babies.
The ancient Romans would throw away the babies they didn't want. They'd put them out in the street or out in the wilderness to freeze to death, or for wild animals to kill them. But Christians observed that even 2,000 years ago, and they rescued those babies and raised them as their own. And that made such an impact on a lot of the Romans that it caused them to convert.
While Monsignor Schmitz supports the Planned Parenthood protests, he's happy that Lighthouse provides a real alternative for those contemplating abortion.
It's not just some people gathered in a corner, but there's a place where they can go. There's a place where they can be received. There's medical services there. There's honest, good people there.
And Sewer says prayer follows each visitor to Lighthouse.
Our encounter might be brief, but we don't forget them. And of course, God doesn't forget.
In these desperate times, many women may feel there's no alternative but abortion. But that's what the Lighthouse Women's Center has come to Denver to show and to prove. No woman should give up hope, and she should never give up on her baby. Paul Strand, CBN News, reporting from Denver, Colorado.
Human trafficking, it is one of the fastest growing crimes in America today. We're going to show you a unique program that is using street smarts for prevention and to tackle the problem.
January is Human Trafficking Awareness Month. It's grown so much that it's challenging the drug trade as the most profitable criminal enterprise in the country.
In Chicago, police realize they cannot fight this problem alone, so they're getting some help. Chicago's beauty attracts more than 40 million visitors a year. The city offers more than 200 theaters, a magnificent mile of high-end shops, and 26 miles of lakefront. But that busyness and beauty also brings an ugly side to the big city.
We've got officers that really care.
Chicago police are working to solve more than 220 missing person cases, and a growing number of those are children being trafficked for sex.
It just gets to me sometimes. Not sometimes, all the time, trying to rescue these kids in the condition that they're in. Dehydrated, you can see the ribs. Just standing there, no shoes. Eyes bloodshot red, body been abused.
Fighting this crime wave takes more than a gun and a uniform. You need street perspective. That's where community activist Andrew Holmes and former cop Carlos Rodriguez come in.
When we're on the street with working side by side with the Chicago Police Department, providing them with information that they know that there are children involved. And you know, a police officer will take a lot of calls, but when it's a child, that's a sore spot for any police officer.
Both now work as private investigators with Morrison Security.
She fits the physical description of a 14-year-old that might be missing out there.
And they lead the firm's volunteer effort to rescue victims of sex trafficking.
Carlos and Andrew Holmes, you know, they're the rock stars. They're the real rock stars of this whole thing. They're my heroes, and I always tell them that.
Sean Morrison owns the business and doesn't charge victims' families for the search and rescue.
We've seen been called to this, and we do look at it as a calling. People say, why do you do this? And my response has always been, if we don't do it, who is going to do it?
We have a phone center. It's 1-800-YOU-TELL-US. And a lot of people call our phone center because they don't want to call the police, because they're afraid.
On our visit,
now, were you able to run that through our photo recognition?
they take a call about a missing 16-year-old. After talking to police,
We figured we try to take this guy down, rescue these kids first.
And scouring online sex ads.
She was on this morning, this girl, and if you look at the pictures of her, her body's not even developed yet.
They follow a lead to a nearby hotel.
Have you seen this gentleman coming in here late at night or late in the evening times?
And when somebody calls us and says, my child's missing, we can't go, okay, well, we'll get back to you tomorrow. You know, we have to drop whatever we're involved in, and we need to address it immediately.
One day after receiving that call, Carlos and Andrew tracked down the missing girl.
Give me 5 minutes, just look out the window.
At an abandoned house on the city's south side.
You've been staying here a while, haven't you?
This is what it looks like inside what's known as a trap house.
There's a bed back here. So they'll come up here. This is where they sleep at night. It never gets old because there's always another one. But to deliver her hand in hand to her family, oh, it means so much to me. It's mean glory to me. My prayers have been answered.
Andrew reunites this victim with her uncle.
How am I feeling right now? I feel so blessed right now. My daughter just graduated yesterday, and just to find her is just another blessing in itself.
This day's happy ending becomes the latest of more than 85 rescues performed by the security firm.
Our first mission is to rescue these children from off the streets and get them back to their families or get them into an environment where they have safety. Our second mission is to educate.
All of this is private. This is off limits. All of this is off limits.
Just hours later, Andrew heads again to the city's south side, this time warning children at the Southside Worship Center about the danger.
We had no idea that it was happening right here. I had no idea.
The church's pastor, Titus Lee, makes it his mission to teach the children and adults in his congregation. He even turned a Wednesday night Bible study into a workshop on sex trafficking.
I realized that if the church is silent, we're going to lose more young people. We must be vocal, we must be proactive, and we must engage.
The pastor and father of young daughters says his eyes are certainly more watchful.
When I look at a girl walking alone now with her head down, I wonder, is she one? Where's her home? Is she out here wandering, or where is she? Is she under someone else's control? Or is she headed that way without intervention? You know, when I see them on their cell phones scrolling now, who are they communicating with. It's reality. There are victims and probably victimizers who could be right in community and or in the church.
And while Morrison Security has rescued several victims in his church's neighborhood, many potential targets remain across the city.
They cover the whole spectrum from A to Z as far as background goes, educated, some are not educated, some are middle-class families. We even have law enforcement personnel.
Human trafficking is a speeding train, moving faster than even police can track. And they say its profit engine could soon overtake the drug trade.
Up next, heart disease can strike at any age. A popular Fox News anchor and his family learned that the hard way. Hear how God is using their journey.
Life was good for Brett Baer. He was a popular Fox News anchor and his wife had just given birth to a healthy son.
Well, at least that's what they thought. While they weren't prepared for what happened next, God had a plan. Jennifer Wishon explains.
Paul Baer looks and acts like a pretty normal boy about to turn 7. But so much about his young life is special.
Good evening, I'm Brett Baer.
You may recognize Paul's dad, Brett, as the anchor of Fox News Channel's Special Report. After his wife Amy's normal pregnancy and delivery, Paul, the couple's firstborn, appeared to be the picture of health. But as Brett and Amy prepared to take Paul home, a nurse they now call their guardian angel noticed his color was off. After testing, the couple learned their son had not 1 but 5 congenital heart defects. In order to survive, the Bears' 6-pound, 12-ounce baby boy needed open heart surgery. Now, 3 heart surgeries, 7 angioplasties, and 1 unrelated stomach surgery later, Brett relives the adventure in his new book, Special Heart, a journey of faith, hope, courage, and love.
Looking back, it was a hard time.
It still hits home. I mean, this many years later, we've been through this many surgeries and this many angioplasties, and you can see, it's still emotional.
It's hard looking back. That was the hardest part about this book, is having to look back.
Soon after Amy learned the news, she briefly became the oldest patient at Children's National Medical Center.
I just collapsed. And I think the stress of it all I had my body emotionally, I think, just shut down.
That's where we made that pact in that emergency room treating Amy, is that we decided that was the moment.
A pact to stop the self-pity and devote all their energy to Paul. From that moment, the couple decided Brett, the journalist, would take care of the medical details, and Amy would focus on being a loving mother. Each night as they left the hospital, they agreed to focus on being 1 day closer to taking Paul home with them, a daily rite they marked with a high five. The Bears later learned at that very moment, a congregation in Colorado was praying for them. For the first time, the couple truly experienced the power of prayer, and it wouldn't be the last.
And the day of Paul's heart surgery, we had a local priest come and pray with us in the little hospital chapel. And as we were praying, we were all kind of holding hands, and I had this vision of these beams of light all around Paul's, the surgical bed, and I just knew in my heart he was going to be okay.
Church is wherever we find Christ present. It's really Christ is present in the love of this family.
Then, before Paul's surgery, the Bears, who are Roman Catholic, made another decision for their son.
Paul was going into surgery, and we realized he wasn't baptized, and there was risk going into surgery, and we just wanted to make sure he got on God's scoreboard beforehand.
The thing that was special was that there was nothing fancy about it. It was just a curtain around a bassinet and beeps and wires, but it was all of our family.
And there's something beautiful about having family members all around Paul, and we wanted to be sure that all our family members had met Paul.
Fast forward 7 years, and young Paul is doing great. To look at his calendar full of soccer, baseball, basketball, and golf lessons, you'd never know he has a defective heart.
In fact, I was joking with his surgeon a couple weeks ago, and I said, that last surgery, if you could have just turned it down just a hair, because we have to run them like dogs to get them to sleep.
At bedtime, Paul prays for other kids with health issues, and as a veteran with the scars to prove it, he offers advice.
Don't be scared, be brave, and don't think about it. It's going to be really fast, and at the end, you're going to get a lot of special treats.
Watching Paul go through his last surgery was tough on everyone.
It was really hard going through the surgery, but I'm glad I made it through.
So is his younger brother, Daniel.
I was my best friend, and then I'm glad you helped me.
Although you may not realize it, Paul's not alone when it comes to his illness.
That stat is staggering. 1 out of 100 kids is born with a congenital heart defect, and half of them have to have some kind of surgery or procedure in the first 6 months of their life.
Many kids go undiagnosed, a tragic fact the Bears would like to help change. That's why Brett is donating every penny he makes on the book to groups working on pediatric heart disease. Paul has at least one more heart surgery in his future, along with more than a few angioplasties. It's not what they hoped for their son, but now Brett and Amy see their family's circumstance as a gift.
I feel like God tapped us for a reason, and we have a responsibility in that. And whatever our course is, I feel like we'll get through it. And I think it's strengthened our marriage and us as parents, hopefully. And we kind of put blinders on us to what's important, and we don't get distracted.
But God's plan is a big part of that. And you look back and you think, all these coincidences, there's really, you think about it, coincidence is something bigger. There's something bigger happening. Because a lot of our life, we can look back at different moments where we think, hey, this had to be a bigger plan, a blueprint.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we're fortunate because we share those same values and thoughts, and together I think we make a good team.
We do. One day closer.
Jennifer Wishon, CBN News, Washington.
And finally, some fifth graders in Washington, D.C. recreated one of the most pivotal moments of the civil rights movement.
They reenacted Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech at Lincoln Memorial.
I have a dream that one day I kind of felt the speech because a long time ago my grandpa he heard it, so he told me a lot about Martin Luther King.
It was amazing. I mean, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I was glad that I was a part of it.
The dream lives on in a new generation.
That's it for now for CBN News Today. Thanks for joining us.
See you tomorrow.